Joseph.
No, I'm Nick.
This is Fish Jelly.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Okay. There's a lot to get through.
Is there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, just because some of these movies, I've watched quite a few things.
Okay.
Usually movies for fun, it's mostly you. Mm-hmm. But I've watched, I think, like 3 or 4 of these.
Yes, you have. So
Yeah.
you can contribute.
So I can finally contribute something.
Oh, boy.
I was going to mention, have you been getting a lot of random text messages?
Yes.
It'll be like, hi, what's up? And then I've stopped responding, but I was responding like, who is this? Mm-hmm. And then it's like, it'll be a picture of like an Asian lady.
Lily from blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and then like they keep responding and then I block the caller and then I still get text messages. So I don't know what kind of witchcraft is happening that I block a contact and I still get text messages.
Yeah, that was happening to me on WhatsApp, too.
Yeah. No, not WhatsApp. Is that what it was? Some other app I had to just like remove everything because it was just constant. Anyway, the world's ending. So one of those podcasts I listen to that I'm too embarrassed to say what it is with the sort of...
With those old homosexuals?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Every time you have them on, I'm... Ugh.
They're dumb. They are dumb. But 2 weeks ago, they reported about Ricky Martin's...
Oh, I forgot about that already.
Ricky Martin's restraining order. And then they reported that the person who filed the restraining order against him was his nephew. Oh. His sister's son. And they had a romantic relationship. But...
What kind of Morgan Freeman
Okay,
shit?
but no. So, of course, I'm like, oh, my God. So, I'm, like, trying to research to make sure this is true before I say it or repeat it. And on all accounts, it's not true. Like...
What part?
The person who filed the restraining order is his nephew. As far as we know, he was not in a relationship with his nephew.
Oh, okay.
But... when I was listening to that podcast and I heard it, I'm like, oh no, please don't tell me Ricky Martin.
Ricky.
So it seems like that's not true. So I want to spread anti-fake news that Ricky Martin...
You mean real news?
Yeah, anti-fake news, aka real news, that Ricky Martin's nephew did not file a restraining order against him. Yesterday a friend got married and then had like a series of little events. One of which was at a place downtown called Truly LA. And I'm so stupid. I had never heard of this place. We get there. It was very cute. I do want to make a side note about parking in downtown LA is very tricky because the prices are never what the actual price is. It'll say like $8, but that's $8 for every 30 minutes or something.
Yeah. So
we saw a parking spot that was like, oh, it's $4. Great.
Knew it was too good to be true.
I should have known it was too good to be true. That was like $4 for every 3 minutes or whatever. I don't know. But anyway, happy to attend. But Truly LA, the venue was cute. And it wasn't until my third drink, which you were buying the drink, so you had brought me my third drink. And I had asked for like, something on the menu said like mango chili margarita.
Something a little more discreet, please.
And you walk up to me with a can of Truly, and that's when it hit me that this establishment is truly the hard seltzer, which I think is cute, except that all of the mixed drinks are hard seltzer based. But you're paying mixed drink money for a hard seltzer beverage. Meaning, like, if I were to go to, like, a restaurant and order, like, a vodka soda, the same price I'm paying for vodka with my mixer is what I'm paying for a truly hard seltzer mixed with whatever. So I didn't like that very much. But I still think it's a really cute venue. And
yeah,
I would go back. They had food, which we didn't try. But anyway, moving on. So one podcast we talked about, oh gosh, who is the black queer filmmaker who has a Criterion box set?
Marlon Riggs.
So we talked about this when we reviewed one of Marlon Riggs' films, but there is a nightclub in New York called The Q, which you might be familiar because this was during the pandemic when all these celebrities said they were investors in this nightclub, like Billy Porter, Zachary Quinto. Do you remember that?
No.
Anyway, this club opened and it's back, or it's on my radar because a lawsuit has been filed by one of the partners. So there are three people who sort of own this, and then they got these celebrities to invest and add some shine to it. But one of the owners has filed a lawsuit against two of the other owners because of like accusations of racism.
Oh.
So I'm just going to read some of the stuff. So some person, Frankie Sharp, was one of the owners, is suing the other two co-owners, Robert Fluitt and Alan Pickus. Okay. So I'm just going to read one paragraph that sort of talks, it's sort of in summary what the issue is with this club. So Sharp alleges that Pickus engaged in racist and derogatory behavior towards the customers and employees of the queue, telling Sharp to make the space comfortable for white twinks and to not alienate the white boys, while simultaneously discriminating against patrons who looked like they were from the Bronx. Pickus allegedly told a candidate interviewing for a bar manager position, "I don't need to break my back to hire people just because they're black or trans," while Sharp, who was in charge of programming, was also allegedly told by Pickus to make sure your Latin nights are the good kind of Latins, not the Blatinos.
Oh, it's curtains, bitch.
Sharp goes on to state that 4 senior managers quit and were fired in the first year of the club's operation due to conflict with this person. Okay, so of course when I heard that, I was like, oh my God. But then, like...
What do you mean make white twinks comfortable? You just need to give them little nuts and berries. I don't know.
Anyway, this is a very common occurrence
of course,
in gay bars.
Historically,
Historically.
The Abbey had a big problem with that years ago.
Maintaining its whiteness and making sure that you have like the cute younger white guys there, and then making sure to alienate essentially people of color, but primarily blacks.
Yeah.
And Asians. Latinos are considered desirable in gay spaces as long as they're like a certain variety.
Well, like everybody.
So like
there's a certain variety of everybody that they'll accept.
So like this accusation says like no Latinos, but
once again trying to segregate us and keep us all apart.
Anyway, I thought I would share that.
That's depressing.
Just more of the same, which is why a lot of spaces I don't necessarily like visiting, because it's very clear they are
who they're catering to. Yes.
Who they're catering to, and I don't want to go places where clearly they don't want people who look like me there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of gay spaces, unfortunately, because oftentimes I'll go to gay bars, and so a good example would be Akbar, which is in Silver Lake. So there's like a bar side and then a dance floor, and the bar has a jukebox.
The dance floor is not open every night either.
Correct. So when the dance floor is open, they're usually playing some, like Saturdays tend to be like some Italian disco shit. Which
they have very interesting.
They have very interesting nights, and I'm not trying to say that Akbar is racist, but I think it's a good example of what a lot of gay bars do. So the dance floor will play a lot of like dance stuff that is kind of like, okay, this is okay, but not really danceable. And then on the bar side with the jukebox, what is the music that people play?
Oh, like 80s R&B.
It's all like 80s, 90s, top 40 R&B and pop. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like if you let the gays choose their own music, they always choose the same kind of music, which is not what the clubs play, because they know that that kind of EDM, like boots and cats type music, will filter out.
Sure, but Akbar does a variety of things, to be fair.
Again, I don't want to make it seem like I think Akbar is racist, but I do think that it's like, okay, every night I've ever been in there, and I've been in there every night of the week, the music that's playing on the jukebox is always the same. It's always the same. It's a little more urban.
Well, it's a finite selection, too.
It is, but they do all, that's true. But what I'm saying is that the patrons consistently choose a certain variety of music that the clubs don't play. Now, Akbar, to be fair, Akbar last night had R&She night, which was a tribute to Aaliyah and other queens of R&B and hip hop. So
again,
they do play a variety. I'm not saying they don't, and they've had like 90s night where the poster will be Janet Jackson, or so clearly.
And the audience, the clientele of Akbar,
the crowd is very white.
Yeah, again. I think it depends on the night you go, but
I've never been when I didn't think it was very white.
Okay.
It's also the neighborhood.
The neighbor, yes.
To be fair.
Between that and the Eagle, yeah.
But I'm not trying to say Akbar's racist. Again, I'm just saying that it's a good experiment as to if you ask gay guys what they all like this dancey pop retro music, and if given the choice, they'll play it. But then the bars and the clubs don't ever want to play that. They always want to play dance versions of it because they know that alienates.
Well, but that's why I like Trunks in West Hollywood, because they don't seem to do that. They seem to cater in the opposite direction, usually. At least on the weekends.
Anyway, you were telling me that book from the 60s, Don't Ask Alice?
1970. I woke up
1971.
I woke up to a text this morning. I don't know why I was alerted to this text from David Allen Greer.
Tweet.
A tweet, yeah, a text.
He's not texting you.
He's not texting me. That he was had some 1971 book, Go Ask Alice, which I read as a kid in 1996. But it was published by Anonymous. It was supposed to be this story about this young girl experimenting with LSD who, ruins her life. And it was used in a way, as a tool against the war on drugs, I think, because it was supposed to scare you. But it's been revealed, according to the New York Post, that a suburban housewife wrote that book.
Well...
but it's quite adult, and I remember one of my teachers in 6th grade being upset that I was reading it. But
who's the guy who went on Oprah and he had to apologize?
Something James Fry or something
For doing the same shit.
That was A Million Little Pieces. Yeah, why do all these people want to lie about?
But that's everyone
being on drugs.
I mean, everyone's pretending to have it harder than
Well, just
because everyone needs a story to tell.
Well, it's just that I think that it also. If we unpack that a little further, it's like, it's so much more interesting to us if this really happened to somebody,
right?
Rather than as a piece of fiction, a piece of well-written fiction, which I guess Go Ask Alice and A Million Little Pieces are. And why can't we appreciate it for that as a cautionary tale, other than like I have to think in my mind that somebody was destroyed?
Moving on, the Locarno Film Festival.
They just announced their lineup, and I will be covering that remotely because that's in Switzerland at the beginning of August. I am excited for. I didn't realize Patricia Mazui, who just announced a new Isabelle Huppert project. She has a film that's competing there, and so does Alexander Sokurov, the Russian auteur. And of course, now with the war on Ukraine, everybody that's dealing with Russian directors has to justify why they're programmed. So it's funny that the festival has already come out ahead of time to say like, of course we support Ukraine. This wasn't funded with the Russian government money, and so it's independently financed. So we can play it.
What does Karlovy Vary ends means?
Oh, the Karlovy Vary Film Festival ended. Which I didn't cover any
Why
of.
do you say Summer of Hope wins Crystal Globe?
The Crystal Globe is the top prize of their competition, and Summer of Hope won that top prize. It's about a pair of Iranian teenagers from an Iranian-Canadian director, Sadaf Farugi. It's her second feature. She had a first feature named Ava in 2017 I didn't see, but I think I always confuse it with another film called Ava in 2017 from, what's-her-face, Lea Maisius. Anyway.
RuPaul's Drag Race, All-Star 7, the all-winner season. We watched episode 9, Dance Like a Drag Queen. The maxi challenge was the queens had to make like a viral dance video like for TikTok. Mm-hmm. So each of them did. It was kind of cute. The top two were Jinx and Monet. Jinx did something like she's like a middle-aged like woman looking for sex.
She's like the Amy Poehler mother in Mean Girls.
And then her dance involved making a peanut butter sandwich, which I thought was very inventive. And then Monet Exchange did something related to money, and her dance was the only one that actually looked like a TikTok dance challenge.
Sure.
But something that I thought was interesting is when RuPaul goes into the workroom to talk to each of the queens about their dance. She was very aggressive about what she thinks they should do.
She's been doing that a lot, though.
Yeah.
Because don't you remember in Australia, she's like, you guys failed because I didn't coach you well enough or something.
Oh,
like,
maybe.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, like she tells Monet, like, your idea, no. You need to do something in a completely different direction, which Monet does, and then, of course, wins. The also for the first time, the lip sync song was like a spoken word thing. It was a monologue from Designing Women, which
Which RuPaul parodied in his SNL.
that's right. If you don't know, or if you haven't watched RuPaul's SNL episode, there's some pretty funny skits.
Yeah.
I think the Designing Women one is my favorite.
Oh, with Cecily Strong.
Yeah.
Who's so good too.
Yeah,
man.
yeah. But Monet wins, and then Monet blocks Raja because Raja was the only one who hadn't been blocked. So now we're left with Jinx and Jada have 3 stars. Everyone else has 2 stars except Shea Coulee.
Boy, I feel so bad for
I
Shea
can't
Coulee.
believe Shea Coulee is in the bottom, and we only have 3 episodes left. I don't know how Shea could end up in the finale, which
don't
is
know.
crazy.
I know.
That someone like Shea wouldn't perform better. But I think, like we've said before, Shea is smart and beautiful and can perform, but she is not funny. Her funny bone is missing, so I think because she takes herself so seriously.
But it's okay to take yourself seriously.
It is, but it's not always as enjoyable to watch. You know, like, not that what she presents isn't great. It's just if I have to choose between 2 people who execute drag on the highest of levels, of course I'm going to veer towards the one who's making me giggle. So I think, Shea Coulee is more of an artist, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't know that this platform is the best for what she does, but either way, the train continues. Okay, there's nothing in the sorry to this man section, which I know is wrong because I made a pretty big mistake on something.
You did?
Yes, and I forgot to write it down. So I guess...
What did you make?
I don't remember. So we'll just go to films that were released we didn't cover.
We didn't have a lot of videos this week. Just Thor, of which the comments on I've been avoiding, and...
actually, so anytime we review Marvel things and we don't like them, which is almost always, lots and lots of nasty comments. But for Thor, there aren't that many, which makes me think that I think people realize that this is a little bit of a disappointment.
I saw a headline that it's obviously making money, not as much as they want, but has received soft reviews.
Because even like Morbius, like there weren't a lot of negative comments because you can't really argue that that's a great movie. Right. So I think that's a testament to, like, people may have enjoyed Thor: Love and Thunder, but it's not a great movie.
Natalie Portman is so bad in Love and Thunder. I felt embarrassed for her. It's a terrible performance.
Well, as long as her check cleared.
Well,
okay. Films released we didn't cover. Morena.
Oh, this won the Camera d'Or at Caan 2021, which is an award bestowed on first-time narrative feature that has its own separate jury. Which I was surprised this one because I saw this at the festival and didn't cover it because I thought Unclenching the Fist would win. But Marina, directed by Antonetta Alamat Kuzijanovic, is about a young girl named Marina who kind of... has a very close relationship with her father that changes drastically when some rich businessman friend of him visits. It was a simple story, very beautifully shot, which I guess justifies the Camera d'Or, but that opened this weekend and we did not cover it.
The Sea Beast.
This was an animated film, and I did have publicists reaching out to me, but I don't even know if I asked you if you want to see this, but it's directed by Chris Williams, whose Big Hero 6 I actually did really like, but this opened on Netflix. And Dan Stevens and Carl Urban do voice work in it, but we did not get to it.
Lastly, Take the Night.
This I was bothered about to review and didn't, but it's the debut of somebody named Seth MacTeague, and it looks like a Z-grade action film, and that's all I know about it.
All right, movies we watched for fun. Something Called Wild Things.
Something Called Wild Things.
Is that with Nev Campbell?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I had never seen that. Very familiar with the poster art. What year did it come out?
1998.
Yeah, so I remember seeing that in college, like in the video store. Because it's like Nev and Denise Richards, like coming out of, like, looks like they're in a body of water and their hair's all wet.
Yeah.
This movie was not what I thought it would be.
Oh,
I thought it'd be more of like an erotic thriller.
Well, it kind of is, but
it feels kind of like David Lynch to me, if he could tell a cohesive story.
He's not interested in doing that.
He's not interested in that.
But it has so many twists and turns. This film left such an impression on me, and even because I haven't watched it for years, but even rewatching it, because Arrow Video put it out on a very beautiful 4K restoration, and even the music soundtrack was taking me back.
Yes, I think the first half is very strong, but the second half, it's just too many twists and turns. It's like a double, triple, quadruple, like it's just too many crosses.
Because, it wasn't filmed from start to finish and in linear fashion. And Kevin Bacon, who produced it as well, said, who has a no nudity clause, interestingly, I was reading. So that shot of his penis is accidental.
Yeah, we see Kevin Bacon's bottom and penis.
Yeah, because the towel was missed, that wasn't planned. But he allowed it to stay in there. But he said that when they were filming, the cast had to be kind of coached and reminded like where they were in the story and what the motivations were in the scene because there were so many twists and turns.
I will say, because I can't recount the story now, but we find out like the gag is Neve Campbell is like the aunt of Denise Richards.
Who is one of her lovers.
And by the time we get, like, you had to tell me that. I was paying attention to this movie, and they do explain, like, their connection. It was so convoluted that I wouldn't have been able to gather that that's what they were trying to tell us.
Sure.
It was just doing way too much. But that being said, I did enjoy it.
Daphne Rubin Vega as Kevin Bacon's partner, loved that. I think she's so straight. Carrie Snodgrass, I think, is excellent as Neve Campbell's grandmother.
You kept saying that, and I don't know what you found so great about her.
Oh, she's so
You said it like 8 times.
She was so crusty, and all the line deliveries I loved.
She wasn't that crusty.
Oh, I loved her.
She was good.
I thought she was good.
But she was no, like...
Oh, and so I usually don't like Teresa Russell, and I think she played Denise Richards' mother, who I talk about all the time because she was married to Nicholas Roeg.
Denise Richards' mother.
Sandra Van Ryan.
Yes, when we first meet her, she's wearing bra and panties on the balcony.
That is, I think it's the best casting ever of Teresa Russell because she actually seems like she could be Denise Richards' mother and gave birth to this devil's
I think she was better than the other lady you keep saying is so great.
I like both of them, but
they were both.
And you know what? For all the flack Denise Richards gets, I really quite like her performance in this. It is over the top and excessive, but in a way that's not like. I feel like she's also very aware of how she comes across, unlike, say, Elizabeth Berkley in Showgirls.
I thought she did a good job.
I thought she did a really good job. And she was giving me young Jean Tierney in this, because she is beautiful,
Another issue I had is I feel like Matt Dillon's character was maybe miscast. I think it needed to be someone more attractive.
Yeah.
And then... They say, like, he's educator of the year, but then he's also, like... But then he's not a teacher. He's a guidance counselor.
Yeah.
That really threw me off. And then his character seems kind of stupid. So I wish that they would have picked someone more attractive, and then his role at the school would have been something like... Maybe, like, I'm not implying that people who teach PE aren't smart, but, like, a different role.
I think
guidance counselor makes sense in that he has access to these girls, but he just... I hated that they kept saying educator of the year, and then he seems kind of stupid, and then he's not that attractive for all these women to be
He's not ugly, but you need somebody that's a little more smug.
Like Kevin Bacon's more attractive.
I think if they'd switched the Kevin Bacon and Matt Dillon roles, that would have been
because the women are all fawning over him, and it's like, well, why aren't they fawning over Kevin Bacon then?
And Neve Campbell, I think we need a little more character development than just her reading Celine.
And I hated her hair.
Yeah, it's terrible, but I like the idea.
But she seems like an angsty teenager in the 90s.
And, she had a no nudity clause, too, because she was still in Party of Five and she couldn't appear nude.
Yeah, so we see Denise Richards' breasts, but not...
Quite a bit, yeah.
But not Neve Campbell's.
And also the lawyers, I like Robert Wagner and...
Bill Murray! Bill Murray was funny.
Yeah.
Because he's like a crooked... Well, no morals.
Not really, but...
He did his job, but he didn't care what he was doing.
In true Bill Murray fashion. And of course, this is directed by John McNaughton, whose probably more infamous film is his debut, Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, which is a film that I find hard to watch. And I'm happy. He did a film, a decade ago now, with Michael Shannon and Samantha Morton called The Harvest, which had some moments I liked in it. But I'm happy to see he's doing a J.G. Ballard. We talked about it a couple podcasts ago with Michael Rooker, a J.G. Ballard adaptation. But anyway, Wild Things.
We finally watched Yellowjackets, the Showtime series. That like so many comments about we should review Yellowjackets. So we did watch it. It took 3 days?
Yeah, because it's 10 episodes.
Okay, I did. It had me going. It got me, gal, for 3 episodes. Overall, I was disappointed in because it doesn't take me anywhere. Like there are no answers. There are
But
no.
but it's set up clearly to have another season. So I think a lot of the nagging questions you have, such as what's her name's baby and blah blah blah.
I think that the way the series is constructed is like it works, but I just needed a little bit more after
Sure.
watching 8 episodes.
10.
10. That's even worse. But I did enjoy what I was watching. I think the performances are strong. It's just that the premise of this group of girls crash landing in some remote area on their way to a soccer field and then being trapped for 19 months. There are so many questions that don't get answered in the first season because I think there's a supernatural element. I mean, there is a supernatural element or component to it, but there's also an issue with time that the first season doesn't address because they keep saying they were gone for 19 months. But I think we're going to learn that they weren't gone for 19 months. And then we're going to learn they were probably gone for like days.
No, I don't think it'll be because her belly's showing.
Or you're right, not days, but I don't know that it was 19 months.
I don't know.
I don't know. I just have so many questions.
They have a lot of explanations because, as you know, Juliette Lewis does get kidnapped by those people with the symbol. Like, so they're
To be fair, everyone keeps asking like what really happened out there. So it begs the question like something doesn't make sense. So I think the construction of the story is fine. It's just I hate that it ended without it ends with us realizing there's some sort of cult and then like that's involved with the disappearance. Yeah. Would I watch season 2? Probably.
I think I liked it more than you, but I also really liked the quartet of women at the front
Christina
of it.
Ricci is so good.
Christina Ricci's really good.
She's perfect. Juliette Lewis.
I like Juliette
She
Lewis.
does a good job. The black lady.
I like both actresses that played Thaisa. Tani Cypress is the older version, and Jasmine Savoy Brown, who is in the latest Scream movie, is the younger one.
Actually, I liked everyone. I think everyone does. Even the teenage boy who's supposed to be like
in love with the young Juliette Lewis character.
Yeah, I thought he was well cast as kind of like because he's kind of like not that appealing, but that's like how teenage boys are. And then he's not the only boy.
The other one's gay,
but the other one's gay, and then the other one's younger, so he's kind of like the one all the girls like. I thought his casting was good.
I really like Melanie Linsky. You know, you have all these women that were as young girls, actresses in the '90s that had. Well, except for Tani Cypress. I think this is the first time I've seen her. But, you know, Juliette Lewis and Christina Ricci and Melanie Linsky had very notable kind of dark roles as
I would recommend it. I'm glad I watched it. I was just very frustrated by like episode 8 when I realized that we're probably not going to get the answers that I want. And then it ends without giving us anything.
Well, except to say that the one that would stop taking her crazy pills has become... like is the one behind these men that kidnapped Juliette Lewis, blah blah blah.
Right. Moving on, something called Round Midnight.
Yes, this is a Criterion release I have to review, directed by Bertrand Tavernier. Kind of a set in the late 50s France about this blues musician who leaves from New York to there and finds kind of a white. What's the word I'm looking for? Somebody to take care of him that's a fan, basically. So I have to review that. Lynette McKee is in it. Dexter Gordon is the lead. And a young Francois Cluzet.
You watched Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris because you read the book in preparation for the new film called Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, which stars...
Leslie Manville and Isabelle
Huppert. So then so you read the book and then you decided to watch, you didn't want to watch the original TV movie until you saw the new movie.
Right.
When that one the TV movie stars Angela Lansbury. It's from the 90s.
It's from 92.
When you were watching it, I surely thought that movie was from like the 60s.
No. 1992, from Anthony Pullen Shaw, who was the Murder, She Wrote creator-director. And this was his first separate standalone film he directed with Angela. And I think he did several in the 90s.
Okay, between the TV movie and the new movie, which one do you like better?
The new one.
Then, compared to the book, which movie more closely matches the book?
You know, it's weird. They both highlight separate elements of the book, but in different ways.
What did you like about the TV movie?
I guess I liked that they kept some of the it. What's better about the TV movie is in France where they kept those characters kind of cohesive and more like Omar Sharif plays the Marquise, who is really just her friend. They don't try like stapling some wayward romantic interest with Mrs. Harris, and Diana Rigg, who plays Madame Clotilde. What's her name? Anyway, who's British playing a French woman doesn't really make any sense. But I like that they maintain this friendship between these two women that they completely get rid of in the new version because they make Isabelle Huppert this harpy. But the devastating thing from the book, which is about what really happens to her Dior dress, is retained in the new version, which I think is effective.
Moving on, something called Fair Game.
Yeah, I showed you this preview. Dark Horizons is re-releasing.
Oh, the lady in Australia?
Yeah,
that shit looked real basic.
It is, and it was. But they re-released this weekend an Ozploitation classic from 1986, directed by Mario Andriocchio, called Fair Game, which is a movie that's such a bad title because there's a Cindy Crawford movie called Fair Game from the 90s, and then there's that Naomi Watts Sean Penn movie about Valerie Plame. Fair Game from 2010, directed by Doug Liman. But this is a movie about a young woman who runs an animal sanctuary and spends the whole film being terrorized by some asshole kangaroo hunters. And that is really basically it. And it has some nice moments, and Cassandra Delaney as the lead is enjoyable enough to watch, but it is very basic and, dare I say, very boring. But the thing that the distributor is bearing down on is how this was really the impetus or influence for Tarantino's Death Proof.
Okay.
In the most basic way.
Moving on, something called Thief.
Yes, we'll get to this later, but James Caan passed away this week, and I was trying to rewatch, because he has a very large filmography, and there are many films of his that I have not seen, even though I was kind of saddened because I think he's a figure from my youth that I liked quite a bit. But I rewatched Thief, Michael Mann's films, and I haven't watched since I had it on VHS, and it's now part of the Criterion Collection. And so you were in the room towards the end when that came on, but it is really a fantastic film, and I do really like Tangerine Dream's score. But yes, James Caan, Tuesday Weld, I think it is one of Caan's best performances.
Moving on. The movie Hoodlum.
Which we watched last night.
Yeah.
Which I've owned forever on Blu-ray, and I'd never seen. It's 1997. It's directed by Bill Duke, who I'm a huge fan of as well. I think this is his follow-up to Sister Act 2. I can't remember if he directed another film in between there. But this is kind of like a gangster epic made in 1997, and it's not well regarded.
Well, I agreed to watch it because the cast is pretty amazing. Lawrence Fishburne, Cicely Tyson, Vanessa L. Williams, Tim Roth, Andy Garcia, Loretta Devine, Queen Latifah's in it. So I was very interested. I think the movie's okay.
Yes.
It feels long, and I think the story's very basic. It's just about like these gangsters in New York and the different boroughs, like each borough. So it's set during the Depression, so the way people are making money is by running numbers, which if people don't know what numbers are, it's like the lottery. But it's, run by organized crime and not the state. So every borough has its own sort of kingpin running the numbers, and for Harlem, it's Cicely Tyson as the queen.
Madam Queen.
But Tim Roth, he's
the Dutchman.
He basically wants to take over the queen. Andy Garcia
is Lucky Luciano.
He works in the same sort of syndicate as Tim Roth, but he doesn't like Tim Roth. And then Lawrence Fishburne is helping Cicely Tyson. So it all builds up to Tim Roth is so vile and so racist against not just black people, but Italians. And Andy Garcia's character is supposed to be Italian. So ultimately, Andy Garcia and Lawrence Fishburne joined forces to do in Tim Roth's character. So all's well that ends well. But it's very basic. So it felt long because then there's this sort of side story with Vanessa Williams and Lawrence Fishburne having a romance, but it is not developed at all. And it's kind of strange because I think Vanessa Williams is so transfixing that
oh yeah,
I think she could have been used to greater effect. So just seeing her, it's just interesting watching her on screen. It's like, oh, you have this creature at your disposal, and you don't do anything with her.
God, she's so beautiful.
I mean, she's in it quite a bit, but she's not doing anything.
She is,
and her character doesn't do anything.
Well, the transitions are, she's volunteers to help feed the poor, and she's like like an angel of the community, but she's very resistant to Lawrence Fishburne, who's an ex-con who's just got out, is like aggressively courting her, and then all of a sudden the next scene we see her in, they're together.
Right, because she's very put off by the fact that he's involved in crime, but then there's a scene where he has to he gets into a fight with someone, and she has to shoot and kill someone to help him.
Yeah.
And then it's after that scene that all of a sudden it seems like she supports what he's doing. I thought that was very poorly written, but...
It is, but I like that scene where she has to kill the man.
Yeah, she's great. Everyone's great. Loretta Devine, who of course I like, she... this is the only time I've ever seen her be sexual in a movie.
Yeah, she is.
And it's interesting.
It's interesting.
Not because she's doing a poor job. It's just I'm not used to seeing her be that way. I mean, in Waiting to Exhale, she's flirtatious.
Yeah, but not like this.
But I mean, this one she's being...
She's sticking her lover's head in her drawers.
I mean, we don't see her nude, but she's being very explicit about what she wants.
But her name is Pigfoot Mary.
Yeah, her name is Pigfoot Mary, and she gets killed. And I'm thinking like, oh my god, at her funeral, are they gonna...
Yeah, what are they going to...
Does she have a government name?
But there's a scene where you have her, Loretta, Vanessa, and Queen all sitting together.
Queen Latifah.
Yeah, and that's all, that those three women sitting together is so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I would recommend this just to see all these people in
Cicely
it.
Tyson, I thought was it was intriguing to see her as Madam Queen, because that's not a role I would...
Well, she's, first of all, beautiful.
Yes.
And she's probably how old there? Like, in her late 60s?
She's probably in her 60s, yeah.
And she looks amazing.
She looks amazing. She reminded me of...
The fashions are sick. Like, she looks great.
Lil' Kim, almost, at one period.
But it's over 2 hours long, and it felt like 3 hours. Unfortunately,
it's too long. But it's Lawrence Fishburne. At one point was very handsome, and I always think...
I still think he is. He's just aged, and he hasn't aged poorly. It's just that he's gained weight.
But I think it must be the weight. But
yeah, I think Lawrence Fishburne looks good.
But I liked everybody in this movie. It really hits a wall. It needed some edits, I think. But I like it. I much prefer Bill Duke's A Rage in Harlem from 1991 with Robin Givens and Forrest Whitaker and Gregory Hines, which is based on a Chester Himes novel. And that is a lot of fun, and that feels much more succinct. And of course, this is a reunion between... I think if we recuperated Hoodlum now, I don't think there would be such a negative reconsideration of it, because like Deep Cover, starring Lawrence Fishburne, is now part of the Criterion Collection, directed by Bill Duke, and I also highly, highly recommend that film. So I think there could be some reconsideration for Hoodlum. But Bill Duke... wouldn't direct another film feature for a decade in 2007 in a film I've never seen but sounds really interesting called Cover, starring Vivica A. Fox and Anjanou Ellis, and it's about black men on the DL.
Oh,
and HIV transmission is
part
of the plot. But yeah, I've never seen that.
Bill Duke, I mean, he...
I have his autobiography that I still need to read, but he's a very interesting person.
Yeah. Lastly, we watched the Martin reunion. So the TV show Martin that aired from 1992 to 1997. There was a reunion on BET Plus. So they had the 4 primary cast members. But as we recall, there were 5. Tommy, the gentleman who played Tommy, who now I'm embarrassed I don't recall his... Thomas Michael Ford. He passed away like a year and a half ago, I think. So he's not there. But we watched the tribute. What did you think? Well, let me start off by saying that for me, like in high school, because I went to high school from 1992 to 1996, when I think about like transformative like television for me, it's Martin and Living Single. Because if people remember, those 2 shows aired back to back on Fox. So... yeah, Martin, have seen every episode. yeah, I mean, it's a very important show to me. But sorry, getting back to what I asked you, what did you think about the reunion? Did you watch Martin? Because you would have been quite young when the show was on.
I was young, but I've seen episodes of it here and there. Usually when my parents weren't home and I could watch whatever I watched, I'd watch more variety of things. But I remember episodes of that. The episode I do remember of what's her name getting her feet trimmed.
Shanae, show enough beauty.
Oh, and all of Shanae, I think, has come up in compilations somewhere.
Well, I watch compilations of Shanae.
Yeah. So, yes, I'm familiar in that regard.
I think what appealed to me about this show, which could also be transferred to Living Single, was like black people just having normal lives. Like Martin played a radio DJ. Mm-hmm. Gina worked in like marketing. So she had a corporate job. She dressed like, she kind of had the life I thought I wanted. Like she wore like business suits and had a briefcase. And her best friend Pam was also, they worked in the same company. Martin had his friend Cole, who was supposed to be like the dumb, naive one. Mm-hmm. And then Tommy, their other friend, who the running joke for 132 episodes was that he didn't have a job, but he would always reference this job. But I just remember seeing those characters and thinking like, oh, they're just normal, funny people. And then there were a lot of guest appearances by celebrities. And Martin played like 6 or 7 different characters. Mm-hmm. Probably the most popular, like Shanae, mm-hmm. and then Jerome.
Shanae is really good.
Yeah, like there was a pimp and a security guard, and then he had the guy Bob, who was like the white guy.
Which is creepy.
But watching the reunion, they each gave sort of like the best moments for each character and their mm-hmm. favorite moments, and I got a little emotional just thinking how much I enjoyed that show mm-hmm. because in that period of my life things weren't the best. So I really latched on to a few television shows I really liked because really it was Martin living single in a different world, and then for music it was just Janet Jackson mm-hmm. and Mary J. Blige was a big one. So I really latched onto those things, like those were my friends because mm-hmm. I didn't have any.
Yeah.
So
I know the feeling.
Yeah, it felt nice seeing them all together. Tashina Arnold has always looked amazing.
Yes.
Cole looks great. Martin, is Martin.
Tisha looked crazy.
Tisha looked crazy though.
But it was because what she was wearing, not her per se.
Yeah, she looked like
first of all, it looked like she couldn't breathe because she's wearing.
She looked like whatever, like the casing you put sausage in. Like, she looked like, and then she's hype. Like she likes to talk a lot. So I think her outfit was so restrictive she couldn't breathe. Yeah. So that she seemed like she was like out of breath. But some guest appearances from like people who were on the show. Tommy Davidson was funny. Mm-hmm. Snoop Dogg.
Well, who's always funny. Yeah.
Who's so charming. But he came on and talked about the show and thanked Martin because that was his first time on a sitcom and that's what made him think he could act. And then there was quite a long tribute mm-hmm. to Thomas McHale Ford at the end, towards the end of the special, which I thought was actually really classy. Mm-hmm. That they took a lot of time. They had his widow and 2 children there. Mm-hmm. She spoke. Then each of the 4 cast members spoke about him. And then a gospel singer came up and sang a damn song.
Leandria something.
So I thought that was actually quite classy that and I recall Tisha saying in an interview somewhere else that the only way they agreed to do the reunion is if the producers would incorporate a tribute to Tommy.
As they should have.
So I thought that was really nice. But anyway, moving on, projects of interest.
Oh, we didn't talk about Marla Gibbs.
Oh, shit. And then Marla Gibbs.
They got her in there.
Marla Gibbs is only on like, I think 1 episode or maybe 2, but she played, at one point Martin had to get like a maid. And so they hired Marla Gibbs, which was a, great casting because we all know Marla Gibbs played a maid in The mm-hmm. Jeffersons. But she came on. That lady is 91 years old.
Just very spry.
And just, she's just
so... But it's like, she's still working, and of course we have an awareness.
But her being on the show prompted you to look up her filmography, and she has a movie coming out this year.
It's 2022. It's coming out. It's called A Snowy Day in Oakland.
And when you read me the cast list, I was like, holy shit.
This cast list had me on the floor. Kimberly Elise, who would be the lead, Keith David, Loretta Devine, Nicole Ari Parker, Michael Jai White, Evan Ross, Jack A. Harry, Marla Gibbs, Dion Cole, and then Kyle Berry, I recognize we just saw on something.
Yeah, that cast has me excited.
Oh, and Beauty.
It has me excited to watch it. The basic story is like there's this woman, Kimberly Elise plays like a mental health, like a therapist who moves into like an urban area, and it sounds like it's just going to be like a colorful cast of characters seek out therapy from her. But that sounds like a lot of fun.
And it's directed by the guy, one of the writers of In Living Color and Sister.
We have to keep it moving though.
Anyway.
So projects of interest, Mickey 7.
Oh, Bong Joon-ho has announced his first project since Parasite in 2019, so that's exciting. Based on a sci-fi novel, and Stephen Yeun, Robert Pattinson, and Toni Collette are in the cast.
And then something called Hedda Gabler.
It's a very famous play by Henrik Ibsen. But Nia DaCosta, the director of Candyman, has announced that she will be adapting Hedda Gabler. No idea who's playing Hedda. I'm very excited to hear. Ibsen, of course, if you haven't read his plays or seen them, Glenda Jackson, I believe, was nominated for an Oscar playing Hedda Gabler in the 70s.
Okay, unfortunately, there are entries in the obituary section. First is someone named Gregory Itzin.
Yeah, he was on the television series 24. He was married to Jean Smart, who many people might recognize, a character actor who's 74.
Then someone named L.Q. Jones.
L.Q. Jones, you've seen and stuff. He's in most of Sam Peckinpah's movies. I thought he was dead already. He was 94.
So you make fun of me saying someone named, but then you over here talking about you thought he was dead already.
Well, he also hasn't been in anything since Robert Altman's A Prairie Home Companion, and Robert Altman died after that movie. But we relatively recently, over the past couple of years, I know we watched The Brotherhood of Satan, because I think Arrow put that out on Blu-ray, and he's in that as a youngish man. He's notable for also directing A Boy and His Dog. And I think I just watched him in Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid recently. But yeah, he died. He looked old for a long time.
Lastly, James Caan is gone.
Which makes me sad.
I did have to look. You texted me. I was working and you texted me.
You know James Caan.
Like a family. When these people died, Nick will text me like a family member died.
Well, they are like my family.
Oh, boy. I had to look his ass up. I do recognize him. I couldn't tell you what I knew him from.
Oh, my God. Okay, so
Because I've never seen The Godfather.
Joseph's never seen the Godfather movies, but...
Misery. He's the man from Misery.
Yes. Which,
I wouldn't have known that unless I saw it on
what's also interesting about Misery? So many male leads didn't want to take that role because it was somebody so emasculating to this wonderful Annie Wilkes, wonderful, this terrible person named Annie Wilkes. And
this
James,
wonderfully terrible person.
So, kudos to him, but, he's burned into my mind for his Misery. But when I watched The Godfather as probably like a 12 or 13-year-old, because I got them on double set VHS as a kid, I thought he was so handsome as Sonny Corleone in
Wait.
in The Godfather.
You thought James Caan in The Godfather was attractive?
Oh, yes. Well, especially compared to, they were all good-looking people, but compared to like Robert Duvall and Al Pacino and...
I'm looking this up.
No, he was very handsome.
Do we know how old?
Well, he was 82 now, and The Godfather was in 72.
That's him right there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was handsome.
I mean, so he was 82. Mm-hmm. So annoying. You wrote down James Caan top 5, and then you put down 7 movies.
Sure.
What can you explain how that makes sense in your little pea brain?
Well, the last one is not okay. So his debut.
Hold on. Could you please explain how you write top 5 and put 7 movies?
Because there's room for honorable mentions.
Well, why don't you just say top 7?
I don't know.
I think you just want to be difficult.
No, I don't want to be difficult.
You have to.
Don't pay me out white like that.
No, because you set your own parameters and you still break them.
Okay. Well,
you said top 5. I didn't ask you for a top 5.
Well,
you made your own
consistency.
You made your own parameters, then you break them.
Well, consistency is the hobgoblin of small minds. Okay. Anyway.
Wow.
He has so many films and so many wonderful films that I know I haven't seen yet.
What's your number 5 James Caan movie?
Probably The Gambler. Wait, number 5. I didn't put these in. Let's say The Godfather is number 5.
Oh God. Okay, what's number 4?
Well, let's talk about the Thief.
Number 3?
The Gambler.
Number 2?
Games.
And of course, number 1 is Misery then.
Yes, but I want to talk about them a little bit too. Games is...
Do you know when I have to stop the recording? It's at 60 minutes. Do you see what time it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Games is directed by Curtis Harrington. And I remember I had to search high and low for this. I think I had to buy a DVD from Spain. And then maybe not too long ago, Kino Lorber finally put it out on Blu-ray. But it's James Caan and Catherine Ross as this handsome young couple. And they are visited by Simone Signoret. And a weird night of games happens. Curtis Harrington originally wanted Dietrich for the Signoret role. But it is a lot of fun. Catherine Ross and... James Caan are very young and good looking. The original The Gambler, directed by Carol Rise, I believe, with Lauren Hutton. Definitely worth a watch.
Lauren Clutton.
We had a joke about, what if you mix Glenn Close and Lauren Hutton?
Get Lauren Clutton. And now anytime I hear it, I laugh. And I think you need to write a story one day
about an actress named Lauren Clutton.
Where the lead is Lauren Clutton.
Anyway, The Gambler, which is remade in a not-so-good remake with Mark Wahlberg and Jessica Lange, I think in 2014. But the original is great. Thief, of course, with Michael Mann that I've talked about earlier. I also highly recommend Comes a Horseman, Alan J. Pakula, Western, starring Jane Fonda, so of course young and beautiful, and Richard Farnsworth, who I believe was nominated for an Oscar in that movie. Really worth a watch. But if you really want, it's like, remember how Bruce Dern's debut was in Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte?
Okay.
James Caan's debut is as this young thug that is harassing Olivia de Havilland in Lady in a Cage, when really, as the title says, she is an old lady in her apartment who is stuck in a large cage as these young men try to burglarize her and terrorize her. It is not a good movie, but it is a lot of fun.
All right. I need to take a break. Give me 1 second. And I'm back. Okay. So The Secret Movie, someone recommended this, and I never know based on how people recommend movies if they think it'll be funny for us to talk about things because like it's not good or so. Someone recommended the movie B-Boy Blues. It's a 2021 film directed by Juicy Smollier.
Mm-hmm. So right away we're like, oh,
so
God. Immediately
I'm like, oh, so they want us to like rip this shit apart. It premiered on BET Plus.
And has really low ratings on IMDb.
So I'm like, okay, here we go. But I have to say, I quite like this movie.
Again, going in with very low expectations, I'm surprised at how competently this is made. And yeah, how much I did enjoy it.
Really quickly, overall, it feels more like it could be an episode of something. There's a web series that if anyone knows the name, please message me. It was on YouTube and then it got taken down. It was about 3 gay black men living in New York. They're younger and just sort of their lives. One of the main characters is sort of a chubbier guy and he's dating this attractive white guy.
I think I do remember you watching
that.
that.
So if anyone knows what I'm talking about, I would love to find that. But anyway, this movie feels like it could have been an episode of that web series. So it does feel a little long in the tooth for what the story amounts out to be. But
I think it feels like maybe reading the book by James Earl Hardy, which is based on...
I'm not familiar with James Earl
I'm not
Hardy.
either. We watched it through the end credits, and one of the dedications is Elin Harris, which makes sense.
That makes sense, yeah.
But...
Whose books I have all of his books now, I think.
You have several that I've procured for you.
And I've read one like 80%. It's been so long I need to
You need to restart it.
Yeah. But I just need a vacation. I need to go somewhere for like several days and I can read a book. But anyway, I need to tell the basic story. So this story is about a young man named Mitchell. He is like a college graduate. He's like a journalist. He works for like a magazine. We see like he has an upcoming photo shoot featuring like Beyonce and Chloe X Haley. So he's doing big things. He lives in a very nice place. We find out like right away that he has just broken off a relationship with a rich guy. So he has his core group of friends. One day he's at work and a delivery driver, like a messenger, shows up, a guy named Raheem, and there's sort of an instant attraction. They meet out at they don't meet, but they didn't plan to meet, but they're both out at like a local bar. They meet and the rest is history. They become very close in their relationship. But things fall apart because they're playing him out like he's a thug. And then Mitchell's...
We need to go back to that.
Yeah, and then Mitchell's like, this preppy guy. So it's like people from two different worlds, how will they ever get along? Which I think is kind of silly, but it ultimately leads to Mitchell sort of asking Raheem to leave because, well, Raheem at one point hits Mitchell, and then they get into a fight like at a party. But then after being convinced that he convinces himself after talking to people that he really does love Raheem, they get back together at the end. It's very basic, but I think there's a lot to talk about.
There is, one, there are so few, I think, it's easy to dismiss gay independent film because, especially black gay independent film, because there's usually something crippling it, like a really bad script or some bad performances or terrible editing or a director that doesn't know what's going on. So really considering that on all fronts, more or less, it's not perfect by any means. But
I think the acting is strong across the board. I think the direction is I'm impressed that this film is put together as well as it is.
Well, because it's kind of comedically edited in a way, too, that has this playful tone. Like, it reminded me of something from the 90s.
Yes. So it kept my attention. There are some moments that I think are quite good. We can get into it, but I think that the story could have just been something different entirely.
Sure.
And I think it would have worked better, which we can talk about.
It kind of like, it's almost as if you can see the we've hit kind of a stagnation. Something really dramatic, like a soap opera, needs to happen.
Okay, well, let me just start going through my notes so we can get through this. Okay. Raheem uses the word Jood, Jood, which he defines as being better than good. Uh-huh. We always say this, but if there were a drinking game for every time you hear someone say Jood, you would die. I mean, it's to the point where it becomes so obnoxious that I think it comes full circle and it's like funny. Yeah. So I can't tell if I think it actually works.
I didn't like it. Because, well, also, Raheem...
Because it kind of becomes a joke within the story.
Right, but Raheem...
Because other characters are saying...
Raheem has this 5-year-old, and the kid's saying Jood, and it's like, don't do that to this baby. He's going to go to school, and they're going to clown him.
You know what that reminds me of? True to the Game, when they're calling the grandma Goggett.
Goggett. I miss my Goggett.
And it's like, I understand that, like, the history of the name is like, God get it or whatever.
Yeah.
But when you go to school or when you talk to, like, the police officer and you keep saying, my Goggett, they think you're crazy.
Jood.
Like, what are you talking about? So then, yeah, this word, the use of the, I mean, I can't even say it's a word, but the use of Jood is prolific. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable to the point where I think that it works because it's memorable.
It is.
And it invoked a reaction every time I heard it.
I was like, oh, God.
Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Okay. So I'm going to echo what you said. It's really nice seeing, like, queer people of color making film, starring in film, like, and telling those stories. So that's a plus, and the fact that it's well constructed is even better. Mm-hmm. But then the element of the story that kind of threw me is the fact that, like, I don't know who wrote it. It's not Juicy, is it?
I think he has co-written. He co-wrote the script co-wrote with Hardy. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know Hardy at all. I don't know when this story was written. It feels dated though, because I think this idea of like a thug.
It doesn't feel taboo. I think that because his friends, Mitchell's friend group goes in so hard against Raheem about what a thug he is and about what a pattern of dating thugs you have. And Raheem does not read just because he wears a do-rag in public. He reads James
That
Baldwin.
doesn't even make sense because Mitchell wears a do-rag.
Right.
We see Mitchell. We see Mitchell at his mom's house wearing a do-rag. So
what signifies?
That's what I want to talk about. Is what signifies him as being a thug because he's a bike messenger.
No,
because he talks a certain way. Raheem actually talks just like Mitchell, except he uses the word "jud."
He's in extremely good shape,
and then they're both super fit. They're both attractive. So Mitchell reminded me of Courtney B. Vance, but
I was thinking Don Cheadle,
but he's handsome. I just didn't like his hair. But
yeah,
they're both like very attractive, very fit. They don't sound that different to me. It's just that their occupations are different. And then we find out Raheem has a child, and there's a little scene about like Mitchell questioning Raheem's sexuality because he had sex with a woman. But yeah, I guess it feels dated to me that like they're really trying to make an entire story revolving around the fact that Raheem is a thug,
which really
Mitchell's not.
Which makes it feel episodic because there's an episode of Noah's Ark where I think, is it Doug Spearman's boyfriend goes off to satisfy his thug lust or something?
Well, and the other thing is like one scene I really liked is Raheem and Mitchell and Raheem's two little ghetto ass friends, they go to some house party, and it's like it feels very hood to me. And I've been to like gay bars where it was like a black crowd and it was a little more hood than, maybe what I'm used to. And it was a very interesting environment because I think, that's a lifestyle that I'm just not a part of.
Well, it's funny because there's also in those environments a lot of that masculine posturing.
Right. So I think this film did a good job because I'm not a part of that world, so I can't say it felt authentic or not. But from what I saw, it felt authentic. Like the juxtaposition of like these gay black men posturing in a way that screams toxic masculinity, but then they all want to have sex with each other. Mm-hmm. So it kind of messes with your mind, but I thought it was very effective. So there's a lot about the ideas that are being presented that work, but I think the basic, like the essence of like Mitchell's friends, particularly, I think his name is Gene. Is it Gene? The one who's like very like vehemently against Mitchell dating another thug.
Yeah, played by Landon G.
Because really they seem more elitist than anything else. Like, well, we're all professional, college educated, and we all make good money and live in cute lofts in like a better part of the city. So to me, it's like that's really what this story is about. And I feel like it would have been more provocative if they would have adjusted the screenplay from the book, which I don't know when that book was written, for something that's more contemporary. Like, I don't know that people are thinking, oh, he's a thug. I think, in the world of like gay black men, there's probably more of like a sense of elitist mentality that, he lives here and we live in this fancy loft downtown and drive a BMW. That's kind of more what I think the story was trying to do.
It was originally published in 1994.
It feels very 90s to me.
See, and that comes across.
Yeah, it needed to be updated, and like this whole thug shit doesn't make any sense. It's not about him being a thug. Raheem, if you saw Raheem on the street the way he looks in this movie, you would think he's like a model, you wouldn't think he's a thug. You would think like he's very desirable. Mm-hmm. So really, it's more about like this guy looks like trouble because of how attractive he is and the fact that he doesn't have shit. But then the story doesn't really explain that he doesn't have shit. Raheem seems like his life is fine.
The only thing sketchy about him are those two dumbass friends that he hangs out with.
Ugh. Well, we can get into that. Okay. So, Mitchell, the other thing about the story that I think is interesting / annoying is I really didn't know who to root for. Like, I don't think there is a right or a wrong person in this relationship because Mitchell's he has a pattern of dating people with similar stories. Sure. And then never wants to introduce them to his family. He only lets it go so far. So it's like, well, you kind of deserve what you get because you're kind of using people. Mm-hmm. And then Raheem is clearly like he like ingratiates himself into Mitchell's life very quickly.
Yes.
And then gets upset when Mitchell wants to take a step back, and it's like, well, you didn't give this relationship any
Well,
time
and
to
also
breathe.
does some questionable things.
But we can get into those. But Mitchell, at one point, because Gene, his friend who's against the relationship, is like arguing with him, and Mitchell says, "If I'm going to get fucked, I might as well get fucked down in the process." And I just thought, like, what? I thought that was bad writing. That's probably in the book. Like,
Maybe again, it's the writing isn't perfect.
well, I only bring that up because I think that's an interesting topic to talk about, because I can't particularly relate to that, but I think that I've met a lot of people who I think do think like that.
and don't realize that
Like,
leads
sex
them
is
to
more-
ruin.
Yeah, like I mean, I can think of quite a few people we know who it's like the sex is most important. Like the good sex will make you make poor decisions, right?
Yes.
I mean, a lot of comedians have some more has entire fucking comedy specials about the essence of that. So
The essence of dick.
the essence of dick, literally. So I think Mitchell is like that. Like his attraction to Raheem is clouding whether or not this makes sense. The fact that he really doesn't know this man, he doesn't know his friends, his family, the fact that he has a child. My next note is, how old are these people? Because Raheem is supposed to be 24. He does not look 24 to me. He looks like he's well in his 30s.
Sure.
And then Mitchell looks like, I mean, if you told me Mitchell was like 40, I would.
It's that hair.
And then Gene has a very interesting hairline, so he looks older.
Yes.
I did like the other friend a lot. I want to say that actor's name, but I don't. Oh, DC. Is that DC? Jabari Red. I did like his character a lot as well. Oh, and then Brandy Evans.
No, DC is that's Raheem's friend.
Raheem's. Oh, yeah. Who's the. Because I kind of thought he and I looked like we could be cousins.
The one that they call the ditzy one?
The one who has a husband.
The one who's dating Babyface?
Yes.
Yeah, what was his name?
Anyway, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah. How old are these people? they look a little elderly. I thought this would make a very good series. Like if BET Plus made this into 22-minute episodes, because I would love to know where all these characters are. Mitchell, his work friend Michi, is played by an actor named Brandy Evans, who people might know from P Valley. I thought she was really funny, and she looks amazing. Her hair and her outfits, whoever did her outdid themselves, because she looks fantastic. They go to brunch, like Mitchell and his friends, because they want to meet Raheem for the first time. And when they're sitting at brunch, I swore T.I. joined the brunch. Didn't you think that looked like T.I.?
That did look like T.I.
I almost fell off the couch. It's not T.I. There's a scene, like a montage, where Mitchell and Raheem are getting to know each other in a very lovey-dovey rom-com way. And there's a point where Raheem is sitting on the kitchen floor.
Yeah.
I was so bothered by that.
Why, well, yeah, why are you sitting on... It looks like you're hiding from this
They're
man in your
both at
apartment.
home, but it's supposed to be like a loving sequence.
Yeah.
And Mitchell is just sitting in the kitchen, hiding from Raheem, and then Raheem brings him a teddy bear. I thought that was so ridiculous. Okay, we need to talk about Raheem's friends, because the first time Mitchell meets Raheem's friends, he says, well, bring them to my house. And they come over, and they're using the N-word, and they're looking at, the character who I thought he and I could be cousins, the actor's name is Michael Jackson Jr.
No, I'm just pointing out that person's in the cast. That wasn't him.
Oh, that's not him?
You know what Michael Jackson Jr. looks like?
He's not in the movie.
Oh,
BD is not him.
Oh, okay.
No, BD's, oh my God. Anyway, Mitchell invites Raheem's friends to the house, and they start picking on him, making fun of all his movies, and
Yeah, it's too long. It's too many. What is it? It's too pink.
yeah, they're made like he's kind of whitewashed, and I thought that scene was very clunky, because I do think that is a relevant topic in the community, as a contemporary issue, but the way it's handled in this 2021 movie, it feels very dated. especially the one friend who ultimately gets shot and killed. I think that's BD, maybe.
No, that's DC.
Oh, that's
Jabari
DC?
Red.
Oh, okay. These names, I'm messing up. But I just thought, like, that seemed a little dated. It felt a little dated because these aren't like guys. It wouldn't see. The problem is, I think James Earl Hardy probably wrote stories like for men on the DL, and I think the way these characters are acting, they're on the DL.
Yes.
But then the script has been updated a little bit because Raheem says like, "I'm just me. I don't need labels." So and then they're out and proud, like they're affectionate in public. So I think that was poorly done because the way these characters are acting, you would think they're on the DL like 20 years ago, but really, they're quite comfortable with their sexuality. They're just being like unnecessarily ignorant. I didn't like that.
Yes.
I really liked the score.
The music.
And the soundtrack.
Well,
much of it is performed by
Juicy.
By Juicy. Particularly the song at the end credits, which was very reminiscent of Michael Jackson.
Yes.
I thought he did a great job. Okay. Raheem has a son named Raheem Jr. That little boy was adorable. He was adorable. His acting was so sweet. Like, that little kid was so good.
But I think the film really comes alive when Mitchell goes home.
That's my next note.
Yeah.
I think the best part of the movie, and I think what should have been the focus, is Mitchell's family. So, Lettucey, who we all know is a singer, she plays Mitchell's mom, and then his auntie is played by Heather B.
Who I know from Dead Presidents.
Which you know from there. I think most people know her. She's a DJ on Sirius XM, Sway's World, but I think someone like me knows her from The Real World New York, the very first season. Okay. Anyway, I think Heather B is the best part of the movie.
Yeah, she's really good.
She's really funny, and her relationship with her gay nephew is really sweet. And then Mitchell's brother, who's this very attractive man who's not gay.
Roderick Hunter.
I thought that when the four of them were together at the mom's house, I wish that would have been the tone of the movie. Like, it was so powerful seeing like this black family supporting the gay son and navigating his relationship. I kind of wish like the center of the film would have been them, and then we see. You know what would have been a better movie? The central storyline is Mitchell and his family and how close they are and how open they are talking about his life, and then we see him dating all these different guys and kind of like how he's the problem. And through talking, and then we get little like, you know, many scenes of him dating different guys and how the dates go wrong. And then through talking to his family and all the humor that comes from that, he realizes he's the problem. And then the end of the film is him starting fresh.
He needs to grow. Yeah, I think the mistake makes it's like you're trying to sell us on selling them as a couple when I don't think Raheem and Mitchell maybe should be.
Yes, I think that's the mistake, is that ultimately I don't think these two belong in a relationship, and all the energy wasted with the family and the friends trying to show him that he's the problem, like you have this pattern of dating certain guys and only letting the relationship go so far, is never truly rectified.
Right.
And then in the end, the fact they're back together is like they shouldn't be together.
It's sure, forgiveness is one thing, and you know, a person like Raheem learning that, you know, violence is not the answer. That, like, you learn that by somebody through the grace of forgiveness, right? But I don't know that he's still the best person for Mitchell.
No.
So
why did I write down Tesha with an E?
Because at the family barbecue, Aunt Ruth, Tesha is
my God.
His brother Adam's girlfriend.
So Mitchell's brother has a girlfriend named Tesha with an E. And it's very much
she's an Instagram
don't be a menace
stereotype.
while drinking juice in the hood or whatever.
Yeah.
It's very much that scene in the backyard barbecue where the girl's dressed like Justice from Poetic Justice. And that's how Tesha's dressed, like Janet is Justice. But then she's like a total ditz. Again, I thought that scene was really funny.
Well, because Aunt Ruth is introducing everybody, and she's like, Tesha corrects her pronunciation of her name, and there's like a record
scratch.
and
the auntie's like, moving on before I beat this bitch with a bat.
Also, Aunt Ruth has twins named Calvin and Alvin.
Yes, and did you get the sense that her twins were gay?
I don't know.
It was funny though, because her twin sons are not adults, and she's feeding them like Crown Royal. I really thought Heather B. She needs to be in more stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. The Raheem, Mitchell, and Raheem's two raggedy friends go to this like hood party. And we establish already that Raheem is very jealous.
Yes.
But then they go to this party and Raheem is dancing up on his ex in a very sort of like sexual way.
Like, unquestionably.
So Mitchell gets upset. And so some guy approaches Mitchell and wants to dance. And Mitchell says yes.
Tries to pull up to his bumper.
And then Raheem sees it and gets mad and fights this guy, which results in them sort of like leaving Mitchell at the party. Subsequently, those guys who Raheem got into a fight with, they see Raheem and his friend DC like standing on the street, and they shoot and kill DC, which then leads to a funeral scene. And then Raheem and Mitchell reconnect at the funeral, and then that's when they decide like it evolves into them getting back together. Again, I feel like the movie completely falls off after.
I don't think completely.
Well, I just think that it just feels like an episode of something. Like it was pretty strong, went up until the barbecue, and then after that, when they go to the party and the fight, and then the funeral, and then Raheem goes back to Mitchell with his son as like an excuse to like forcing him to open the door. I just thought like I don't know, it fell off for me.
Sure. Well, you don't have to agree with what the characters are doing to.
Sure.
That isn't what's making it kind of a subpar film, and I don't think it is at all. I was quite impressed with this, and Juicy Smollett. It's just unfortunate what he got himself into.
My final note is Mitchell works for this magazine, and they've secured Beyonce and Chloe X Haley on the cover. And Mitchell is so wrapped up in Raheem's bullshit that he misses the photo shoot. And then the film, they have Chloe, Haley, and Beyonce in it from the back.
Yeah.
So it's like actors pretending to be them.
Much like Destiny's Child and Billy Lynn's Halftime
Which I
Walk.
thought was kind of funny, but I was like, I cannot believe. Under what circumstances would he miss like being in the room for his photo shoot with Beyonce?
To bring this 5-year-old to a pizza
To have
party.
this 5-year-old at Chuck E. Cheese? Child, I would have abandoned that child. Can you imagine?
Well, or brought him with or something.
Would you have would you fucking like watch my nephew while Sigourney's waiting for you to like absolutely
Oh
not.
no, we would Uber Eats a nanny somewhere.
Yeah. I mean it just doesn't even make sense that he was sitting at like Chuck E. Cheese while Beyonce is waiting for her.
Yes.
Like on no universe would that happen. So that drove me crazy. But overall, I agree. My expectations were set low because of what I thought this movie would be. But I was quite impressed. There are a lot of flourishes that I think are fun. I really thought the acting from everyone was strong.
And yes, and to say that because we didn't say their names, Timothy Richardson plays Mitchell and Thomas Mackie plays Raheem.
Yeah, I would if we subscribe to BET Plus now, we subscribe so we could watch this movie. But if there were a B-Boy Blues series, I would watch it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I found the characters interesting and funny. I think watching, again, queer black people just living life and not having it be all about trials and tribulations is refreshing.
Although, BET Plus, I was surprised that there is not a wider range of selection on there.
Well,
because what I really want to subscribe to is Brown Sugar. Because they have a great library.
Brown Sugar has better cinematic offerings.
They have a fantastic library.
BET Plus, I think they're working on their catalog. Yeah. But to be fair, we are looking at BET Plus through Amazon. I bet if you look at BET Plus, like the full catalog, it'll have more.
Sure.
But anyway, what do you have going on this week?
I finished reading The Passion According to G.H. this week by Clarice Lispector, which was very entertaining. Very mysterious, strange writer, and I am smitten and want to read her other things. But, it's all about this sculptress in her maid's room in Rio, and realizing that this black maid that left hates her and sees these paintings on the wall, that one of which is supposed to emulate her, much like Plato's Shadows on the Cave kind of. And then she kills this cockroach in the room and then goes through these series of mental exercises being stuck in the room, which is a series of contradictions as how something can't be something without being the opposite of something, blah, 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 and ends up, in short, eating the cockroach. It was a fascinating read, let me tell you. And if you like very bizarre literature, i.e. Kafka's Metamorphosis or Anna Kavanaugh's Ice, I highly recommend The Passion According to G.H. But then I also started reading this week, I'm about a third of the way through, The Gospel Sound by Tony Heilbutt, who was a Harvard PhD scholar who's written a couple books that I'm interested in. But I've had this for a while. It was a reprint from 75, but it was really originally written in 1971. And I've been reading because it asserts that all music goes back to gospel rhythm. And of course, there's so much I don't know about a lot of the obviously Bessie Smith and Ma Rainey, but they weren't gospel singers. They were born out of that. But reading about Mahalia Jackson and Rosetta Tharpe and all kinds of other things. But and I wanted to point out, James Baldwin said of this book, it's a very beautiful book with love and precision, no pity, a little like a gospel song. I didn't know that anybody knew that much about it or cared that much or could be so tough and lucid. But it was interesting. There's an off-the-cuff remark about Elvis in there, and I wanted to comment on that because Heilbutt points out that Elvis, at a point, supported George Wallace. And it just makes me go back to disliking that fucking Baz Luhrmann Elvis movie so much, and all the negative comments we got about just saying how this film is not dealing with the cultural appropriation that he was at least accused of, maybe not conscious of, but at least needs to be part of the conversation. And I know I brought up that meeting he had with Richard Nixon, but this motherfucker, I did not know that he supported George Wallace.
For people who don't know, George Wallace was the governor of Alabama.
Yes.
For a long time. He was governor up until the 80s. Mm-hmm. And he's known for making that speech where he said segregation forever.
Yes.
So, like a vehement racist. He even said something to the effect, like, around the time MLK was assassinated, he was interviewed saying, someone asked him, like, how are we going to ensure, like, something about maintaining the conservative blah, blah, blah of this nation. And this motherfucker said, we're going to have to see some high-profile funerals.
I remember there was a TV movie starring Gary Sinise as George Wallace.
Actually, I do recall that.
Yeah, because he was shot, and he was shot himself, and was he paraplegic? He was he was wheelchair bound because I know he was shot at one point at least. But I know what George Wallace stood for, and the fact that they did not even come close to addressing that in this new Elvis movie. It just, it makes me mad. Anyway, there's that.
Anything else you want to say?
No, we have a big week ahead, I guess. We're seeing Where the Crawdads Sing tomorrow. That title has me cracking up, and I did not read that book. And there are a bunch of other things coming out this week, but we already covered the Winona Ryder release and a new Isabelle Huppert. Yeah.
All done?
I'll leave you with a quote from Clarice Lispector.
Thank you.
I only achieve simplicity with enormous effort.
Bye.